Welcome to this short video series about gender-based violence in honor of the 16 days of activism against violence against women and children. This first video is called "What is gender-based violence and who can experience it?" Here is one definition of GBV that highlights a few important things. It says, gender-based violence is the general term used to capture violence that occurs as a result of the normative role expectations associated with each gender, along with the unequal power relationships between the two genders within the context of a specific society. Now, I think most people are increasingly realizing that stating that there are simply two genders is quite binary. So we do acknowledge that limitation of this definition. But the important things to take from here is that violence occurring between two people that is based on certain predetermined roles that are relevant to that society is gender-based violence. And it's very much got to do with an unequal power balance between those two parties. And that unequal power balance opens the door for this kind of violence to occur. Now, gender-based violence is quite a broad term that can be subdivided into a lot of other more specific types of violence. So gender-based violence encompasses domestic violence, sexual violence or rape, homicide, femicide, or violence against members of the LGBTQIA+ community. This series of videos is going to focus specifically on one form of domestic violence, which is intimate partner violence. Other forms of domestic violence include child abuse and elder abuse, but we're going to focus on IPV. What is intimate partner violence? Well, in order to understand what IPV is, we first need to understand what an intimate partner is. So that is a romantic or sexual relationship between two people. It may be current or have happened in the past. They may be married or not. They may have children or not. It may have been a very brief relationship or a very long-standing relationship. All of those would count as intimate partners. Intimate partner violence, therefore, is any form of psychological, physical, or sexual violence that is perpetrated in such a relationship. And we are going to get into a lot more detail about all the different kinds of IPV that there are as the video series progresses. Okay, so who can be a victim or survivor of intimate partner violence? Let's have a look and see. It can happen in heterosexual relationships. It can happen in homosexual relationships. It can happen to someone who is very rich, someone who is very poor. It can happen to someone who is highly educated and professional. It can happen to someone who's got no or very little education whatsoever. It can happen to someone in the rural areas. It can happen to someone in urban areas. So essentially, what I'm trying to demonstrate is that potentially anyone can be a victim of intimate partner violence. It can happen in any socioeconomic stratum, to any type of person, any race, any sex, any kind of relationship. But if we were to select out two of these that would confer the highest risk of being a victim of IPV, we would select out rural and undereducated women. That is the highest risk population for experiencing IPV. But please, let's not forget that it can happen to anyone, anywhere.